Good morning, class. This is officially the last day of assigned work that needs to be turned in. And just so you guys know ahead of time, because I seem to be running late recently, Tuesday's going to be a makeup day. Okay, just making up, filling in any missing work. Okay. I had several people ask questions on Wednesday about this problem. The one in your book about the quilt, okay? And it's an involved problem. That's why it's called a task, right? We talked about how these performance tasks, they're a little more complicated. So I said I would send an example of my work. And I will attach this. I'm not saying you have to go back and redo yours, although this is the kind of problem that shows that you have a really good in-depth understanding and that you can break apart big problems and figure out the steps you need to do. So the first thing I noticed the problem said is that you're gonna have 9 quilt squares, okay? Now obviously you see a lot of squares here, but these are not the quilt squares. The quilt squares are this size. That's why they showed you, I should have the page ready here too. Let me flip to it. That's why they showed you this diagram as an idea. This is what your quilt is going to be. But then it asks for more. It asks you to design your quilt squares and break them into fractions. So they wanted some of the squares, and they did not tell you how many. They wanted some of the squares to show fourths. So I decided all of my corners I would break into fourths. Then they wanted you to color half of your square yellow and half red. So I've done that. They also wanted some of your squares to show sixths, okay? So my side squares here show sixths, but I've used a different pattern because I want to have a pretty quilt. And again, I'm coloring half yellow and half red. And last but not least, I made my center section show eighths. And this was a pretty easy one actually for me to figure out because I started with my fourths like this, but broke each of those squares in half again and ended up with my eighths. And then they asked for a description, okay? It's important on a problem like this that you are using words. That's the point. So let me read what I've written so far. I divided the corners into fourths. I colored 2 parts red and 2 parts yellow because 2 fourths is also 1/2, and that's what they had asked you to color. For my center pattern, I used eighths and colored 4/8 of each color because that is half. All right, and then I probably would talk about my sixths as well. So here's this problem. If you have time, go back and work on it. This is a good challenging problem. To be honest, this is the kind of problem that you might receive if you were to take that ISAT test. Now, we all somehow skipped that this year, but I don't want you to be blown away by it in 4th grade. So take some time, work out tough problems. All right.